The moment my boss said my name, I knew my life was about to tilt off its axis, not because she raised her voice, not because she looked angry, but because she closed her office door slowly, the kind of slow that makes your stomach drop before anything bad actually happens. I was standing there with a notepad in my hand, ready to be lectured about missed deadlines or rewritten copy. Instead, she leaned against her desk, crossed her arms, and said something no employee ever expects to hear. "I need you to pretend to be my husband." I laughed, out loud, the wrong laugh, the kind that escapes when your brain refuses to accept reality. She didn't smile back. That's when I realized this wasn't a joke. Let me rewind, because this story doesn't start in her office. It starts with how invisible my life had become. I was 28 years old, existing on autopilot, not failing, not succeeding, just a broken bar floating, the kind of life where weeks blur together and nothing really changes except the balance in your checking account. I worked at a respectable company with a respectable title that sounded more impressive than it felt. Junior roles, junior pay, senior stress. Every morning was the same routine: a cheap coffee, crowded commute, polite nods to coworkers who didn't know me well enough to ask how I was actually doing. I wasn't unhappy. That was the dangerous part. I was comfortable with fine. People like me don't expect plot twists. And then there was my boss. She wasn't just my boss, as she was the kind of woman people noticed the moment she entered a room. Sharp suits, sharper mind, calm authority that didn't need volume. She ran meetings like a chess game and negotiations like quiet warfare. Everyone respected her. Some feared her. No one knew her. Not really. She never talked about her personal life. No photos on her desk. No casual mentions of weekend plans. She was a professional walla, impressive, impenetrable, distant. Which is why, when she said those words, my brain short-circuited. "I'm sorry," I said, blinking. "Pretend to be broken bar what, my husband," she repeated, like she was asking me to proofread an email. There was a pause, a long one. I waited for the punchline. It never came. I did the only thing I could think of to ground myself in reality. "Do we broken bar have to sleep in the same bed?" That finally earned a reaction, a sharp inhale, an eye roll that suggested she'd already anticipated my stupidity. "Don't be ridiculous," she said. Then, after half a second, "unless it becomes necessary." I wish I could say I stood up for myself, that I laughed it off and walked out. But curiosity is a dangerous thing when your life feels small. So I stayed. She explained in fragments at first. Corporate dinners, family expectations, a powerful board that trusted married stability more than single independence, investors who wanted a family-oriented image, a year-long probation before a promotion that would put her at the very top. "I need this," she said, not pleading, but honest. "And you need money." That last part hit harder than it should have. She knew about my mom, about the bills, about how often I turned down social events because my budget couldn't stretch that far. I never told her directly, but people in power notice details others ignore. "This would be strictly professional," she continued. "Public appearances, events, a shared narrative. No romance, no complications." Every sentence made the situation sound more unreal. "And why me?" I asked. She studied me for a moment. "The kind of look that strips you down without touching you." "Because you're forgettable," she said calmly. "And because you won't fall in love." That stung more than I expected. Forgettable, safe, predictable. The same words my friends back home used to tease me with. The same ones I pretended didn't bother me. She slid a folder across the desk. Inside was an agreement. NDAs, compensation numbers that made my chest tighten. Enough money to erase my debts. Enough to fix my mom's roof. Enough to change things. 1 year, she said. After that, we walk away clean. I stared at the folder. This was insane, reckless, completely inappropriate, and yet a broken bar. My hands didn't push it back, because beneath the absurdity was a quiet truth I didn't want to admit. Nothing exciting had ever happened to me, and now something was. I looked up at her. 1 year, I repeated. She nodded. I swallowed. "I'll need rules," I said. "Clear ones." A hint of a smile appeared. "Just barely." "Oh," she replied. "We already have rules." That's when she stood, walked around the desk, and extended her hand. "Welcome to your new life," she said. I shook it, and in that moment, I had no idea I was agreeing to the most complicated, emotionally dangerous year of my life, a one that would blur every line I thought I understood about power, identity, and love. Because pretending to be someone's husband is easy, pretending not to become one, that's where everything falls apart. She followed me out of her office, heels clicking with controlled precision, and said quietly, "From now on, you don't call me by my last name, not in private, not in public." I stopped walking. "What do I call you then?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. "By my first name. You're my husband now. Start acting like it." That word hit differently the second time. Husband. It echoed in my head all the way back to my cubicle, where my coworkers were hunched over keyboards, blissfully unaware that my life had just split into two parallel realities. In one, I was still the junior copywriter nobody paid much attention to. In the other, I was apparently married to one of the most powerful women in the building. By lunch, HR had already emailed me paperwork I didn't remember signing, a temporary title adjustment, special projects liaison, a salary bump that made my hands shake as I refreshed my banking app to make sure it was real. This wasn't a fantasy anymore, it was operational. That evening, she texted me an address. Her address. No explanation, just, "Be here at 7, we need to rehearse." Like this was a performance. Her apartment was nothing like mine. High-rise, floor-to-ceiling windows, clean in a way that suggested someone else handled the mess of living. When she opened the door, she wasn't in a suit. She was in jeans and a soft sweater, hair down, face stripped of the sharp armor she wore at work. For half a second, I forgot how to speak. Then she stepped aside and said, "Come in, we don't have much time." She laid it all out like a campaign strategy. Our backstory, where we met, how long we'd been together, why there were no photos online, why no one at work knew yet. She anticipated questions before I could ask them. "We met at a charity gala. We dated privately. We married quietly. We value discretion." Every answer was clean, polished, believable. Then she looked at me and said, "Say it." "Say what?" "My name," she said. "Like you mean it." I said it, awkwardly at first. Then again, she corrected my tone, my posture, even the way I stood next to her. Too far looked distant, too close looked forced. "This isn't about affection," she said. "It's about credibility." That's when she dropped the next rule. "We'll be living together." I stared at her. "Temporarily," she added. "The board will expect it." And honestly, it's easier to control the narrative if we share a space. My brain screamed the board, but my mouth said, "Where would I sleep?" She gestured down the hallway. "Guest room." I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Then she added, casually, "Unless circumstances change." There it was again, that subtle uncertainty she kept planting, whether intentionally or not. The first public appearance came faster than I expected. A corporate fundraiser, black tie, cameras, donors with practiced smiles and sharp eyes. She took my arm before we stepped out of the car, fingers light but deliberate. "Relax," she murmured. "If you look nervous, they'll smell it." The doors opened, flash bulbs popped, and just like that, we were no longer pretending in private. We were selling a story to the world. People congratulated us, asked how long we'd been married, complimented her dress, shook my hand like I'd won some invisible lottery. I nodded, smiled, played my part. But something strange happened as the night went on. She leaned into me naturally, laughed at my quiet jokes, let her hand rest on my chest a second longer than necessary. To anyone watching, what could a broken bar real? Too real. At one point, an older board member smiled and said, "You've softened her." She squeezed my hand. Later, when we were alone in the car, she stared out the window and said, "Don't read into that." I wasn't. I lied. Living together changed everything. Morning routines overlapped. Coffee cups beside each other. Late-night conversations that had nothing to do with the deal. I learned she hated silence but needed it. That she slept poorly. That she carried pressure like a second spine. She learned I overthought everything. That I still sent money home. That I pretended not to want more from life because wanting hurt too much. Lines blurred slowly, dangerously. One night, after a long event, she kicked off her heels and laughed, really laughed for the first time I'd heard. "You're better at this than I expected," she said. "At pretending?" I asked. She looked at me. Something unreadable passed through her eyes. "At being here," she replied. That was the moment I realized the rules were no longer protecting us. They were trapping us. Because the longer we played husband and wife, the harder it became to tell which parts were acting a broken bar and which parts were starting to feel real. And I hadn't even asked the most important question yet. What happens when one of us stops pretending?